when they would have meltdowns, there's no words that can express it to help them. And I would telepathically tell them, it's okay. You're going to be okay. We're going to work this out. Let's go and play. And I would get my loving energy and I would move it towards them and then envelope them like in a hug. And you could see them calming down. So, yes, I feel like a lot of children that are under the spectrum are so spiritual if we just listen to what they have to say and look at their behavior. They're teaching us certain things. And many of them are star children. They are here to help us on earth with our energy and be the conduit for other things that are coming in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Sovereign Self Show. And today we're talking with Michelle Henderson. We're going to dive into embracing intuitive children. I know our listeners out there consider themselves intuitive, but how do you embrace, how do you parent, how do you encourage and support your own children with these beautiful abilities? So before we dive in, a little bit more about Michelle. Michelle is an author, a psychic shaman, and a healer who blends 30 years of expertise and education with profound spiritual insight. She's the author of Sarah's Spiritual Journey with Jesus, Spiritual Nurturing for Intuitive Children, Spiritual Adventures, and The Imaginative Social Skills. Michelle channels timeless teachings from Sarah, a woman who walked alongside Jesus and is passionate about empowering intuitive children, guiding parents, and creating innovative social skill programs with children with ASD. As a former the former host of Inspire Your Essence, she is known for heartfelt storytelling, spiritual wisdom, and conversations that inspire transformation. Well, welcome, Michelle, to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, well, I am so excited to be here and I'm so excited about our conversation that we're about to
Yeah.
have.
Oh, me too. Me too. And I think, I told you off air, we haven't really talked about the intuitive aspect of children and as a parent, as the adult. Usually it's reparenting yourself. So now we're
Yes.
coming at it on this show from the other perspective. But before we dive into that, I would love to hear the abridged version, whatever you want to share. How did you get to be doing this work over 30 years ago? Starting this work. I'm sure it's evolved, but what was it like for your journey of discovering your own skills, becoming a shaman, and now guiding other people to do the same in their life?
Oh, I love the question, and I'll give you a very short version of it. A very short version of my story, or will it be here all day? It just seems like each decade keeps going so fast,
Yeah.
but it really started out when I was a child. I could feel the energy. I could feel I was an empath. I could feel other people's emotions. I was a sensitive child. And I was just I loved being by myself because I loved feeling the energy. And Jesus was my best friend. I could feel him. I could embrace his essence. And I went to a friend and I said, "Wow, do you feel all the energy that's around us? I want to find out more." And my friend looked at me with the wide eyes and going, "Do not go there. Don't open that door." So I grew up in a very Christian community, very closed, where they did not let anything else that's woo woo inside. And so I basically tuned it down a little bit. I didn't turn it off. I just felt like maybe it's just not the time or maybe society doesn't want me to do it, but I still used my intuition. I still, whenever I had that gut feeling, I would tell people, I know I need to do this. I have that gut feeling again. I didn't call it intuitiveness back then. But in my 20s, I was just very spiritual. It was getting stronger and stronger. And that's when and spirit began to visit me more and more often. I could feel them, I could hear the voices. I'm going, and I wasn't for sure if I was going crazy or if this was normal. And so I thought, okay, I need to find out more of what's going on with me. And so I actually went to my minister of the church and she told me, she said, "Michelle, it's not anything evil," which really surprised me with her answer. She said, "If you are not ready for this journey, tell them that you are not ready, and they will honor that." And so I did. I said, "Okay, right now I need to find more knowledge about this area before I embrace it." And then so they really backed off. And then I went to a psychic medium who showed me the way. She said, "First of all, you're not going crazy. Second of all, you are what we call a psychic medium, and I'm going to give you some skills, some exercises to do and more knowledge." So that's how it all started and how it all began. But I didn't really come out of the closet or really start practicing until right before COVID.
And that's when a lot of people needed extra support. Perfect
Yes. Oh,
divine
yes.
timing.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. But what is so funny is I took this wonderful course online right when we were locked down for spirituality or becoming an intuitiveness. And it was a 9-month program. And I absolutely loved it. And I thought during COVID, I thought, I'm going to do my own Facebook channel. I'm going to do readings online and try to give people hope. And I made my own business page, and so I went live for the first time, and I'm talking, explaining why I'm coming out of the closet, and I look up, and a lot of my personal friends are on it. I'm going, "I don't know about my business channel." I was on my personal channel. So, I almost thought I'm gonna go off, but I thought, "You know what? This is meant to be the way it is happening." So that's how I came out of the closet is that that spirit said, "Let's just dive in." And I was very surprised. I had so many friends that said, "First of all, we're not surprised. Second of all, I want a reading from you and how wonderful it is." So I was very surprised how it came up, but I was very scared in the very beginning because you're so vulnerable when you're in that area.
Yeah, and I think, the witch wound, so to speak, of, like, being seen, and like you said, "Oh, no, these are my real life friends," and that realization
Exactly.
it's
Right.
a little
Right.
shock to the system, but I think when you have such a clear calling from spirit, from your soul, what you're meant to do, those moments, yes, well, might pop in and out, but
Right.
they're not gonna deter you. Your
Mhm.
focus, your mission, it's clear, and it changes and it develops, and I can't imagine with children, I know as an intuitive kid myself,
Mhm.
growing up, Catholic,
Oh my
kinda
gosh.
kind of a little, I mean, the Da Vinci Code, I remember my mom reading it
Mhm.
and all of that stuff, like, my parents were into that, and they were open to the possibility of these different realities. What if Jesus lived? What if Jesus had a family? So I kind of grew up with that. Um, but I remember, sensing spirit as a kid and it being very scared and not, having the abilities, the skills. And my mom would tell me a little prayer, do the sign of the cross and, basically clear the energy. But what I realized, my skills, my blanket literally became my energetic blanket. It helped me shield, it helped me ground my physical blanket growing up, a Care Bear blanket, which I just love. But other than that, like, really on my own, and now as an adult, I can't seeing someone like you said, kinda shut them down. Not off, but you numb out a little bit. For me, it was like, "Okay, let's turn the dial down so I can function and kinda have conversation," because I know a lot of listeners can relate to being an empath, to feeling all the emotions of their family and other people, maybe that they don't want to feel. And so our little bodies, a lot of the listeners here too, had some physical stuff too that growing up, whether it's digestion, a lot of, stuck womb energy with menstrual cycles and stuff. I see this repeated pattern because our little bodies are just harboring all this energy. We don't know how to process, we don't know how to ground ourselves. So, with that very long winded,
Hey, I do have a
yeah,
question for you
yeah,
though.
please.
As a child, did your parents know that you were more open to the spiritual world?
They knew I was very sensitive, because I
Okay.
would be very emotional,
Yeah.
um, and be easily offended if somebody, may poke fun at me. And so it was more viewed in that sense from with love. But, at night, I always had trouble falling asleep because I could feel something else there, as a kid, and so my parents were kinda like, "Oh, she can't fall asleep," that I am sure every night I would come down a couple times a night, but I know it was because my brain was kinda shutting down and I was opening myself a little bit to things coming up, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Ugh. So, you know, what we all I guess listeners, we can relate to that us going through the experience as a kid, but how as a parent, how do you really figure out, is this a kid's imagination? Are these really intuitive experiences? Because as kids, our imagination is wide open. It's such a beautiful thing, imagination and play. How can you start to decipher between the 2, or do you even need to?
I love that last comment. You don't need to, because being spiritual is very imaginative.
Yeah.
It is because it's not any logic in it at all. So it's very, very imaginative. So when a child begins to use their imagination in arts and crafts or emotionality, they are expressing themselves, and that is spirituality.
Mm,
So, there's different ways that you can look at it. So when parents become aware of their child being, because we're all born very spiritual, very intuitive. We still have that crystallized, blood going through us and everything else. And age 7 is whenever it begins to get less and less and less. But the first thing that really pops up is my child is looking off in the distance, or they're talking to somebody that's not there, or they're talking to an old relative, a grandfather or grandmother, and I don't know what to do about it. So that's when the parents become fearful. And that's what really, alerts them that there is something going on with their child. Usually, if they're feeling the energy or being emotional, yeah, a lot of times they'll just say, "Oh, yeah, they're just being emotional, that's just them." And which is good, but you also need to embrace your child and figure out, well, what we can do. What is your emotion? What are you feeling versus somebody else? And like you said, you would use a blanket to help ground yourself. And that is just an awesome thing to do. You just knew to do that where some children may not. And that is a wonderful thing. If the child feels empowered and they feel like they are in control, then they can be themselves as much as they want to.
that's beautiful. You know, I don't have any kids yet, but I feel that's coming soon. And I guess being a parent, even my parents said this, is you get to re experience childhood through your kid from a different perspective that maybe you didn't experience. And to have these kind of systems and structures in place for them to explore all of these
Yes.
beautiful things of what it means to be a spiritual being in a human body and the
Mhm.
potential of what humanity can be. And I think every day these souls are coming in more and more, like Dolores Cannon, the waves of these new souls coming in.
Mhm.
Um, so what about that aspect? Because I think, millennial generation and then the boomers and all, I go back and forth. We all come in kind of with this collective energy. So what are you seeing now? Like what's coming in that maybe is different than before?
Oh my gosh, and I'm so glad you asked that question because I feel very grateful for all my wise years. Because you do see it as you get older, you get to see the changes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was born in the 60s. And of course, back then, it's so interesting that the hippie age was going on and they were trying to tell everybody, we need to be free and everybody. But anyway, so shut that down. But, and yeah, and the universe brought us people that really understood and tried to educate us, generation to generation. And these children are getting stronger and stronger because I think our consciousness is really beginning to accept it more. And they're coming in to help guide us. Where before we go, oh, yeah, that's just being a child. And society was totally different. But now things have changed so much. You can go to a bookstore and go to the metaphysical section without sunglasses and a hat anymore, because it's being accepted more and more. When you go to a holistic fair, it is amazing how many people are there. And I would love to sit there and find newbies. I would call them newbies that were really, and they were middle aged women trying to figure it all out. And they were just in awe with everything. So I think with the energy being raised here on earth and these children that are coming in, I've got grandkids that I can see the difference between my grandkids and my own kids when they were born. Just the energy. And I'm just going, oh, wow, this is incredible. So I think it's just generation to generation. We learn something with every generation. Collectively, and divinely, we have so many lessons to learn. And I think with every generation, we're learning something new for the future generations. And it's just, increasing, increasing, increasing in that energy.
Mm. Yeah, I see, it seems like a lot of kids that are more sensitive to energy, and you see raises and I think of autism and different um, things that people might diagnose as a physical symptom, but I see it's because these souls are coming in with these different vibrations that are trying to attune to this reality, to this 3D. Do you see a lot of that of these
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And, I call them kaleidoscope children because they can see the earth grid, they can see beyond the sensory. And I know for certain parents, I don't want to downplay it either because it can be spiritual, but for some parents, they're going through a battle with it. And it is very difficult to live every day and know what to do for your child when they're so sensory overloaded. And so it can be a very difficult thing, but I always tell the parents too, you are a warrior. Your child chose you to be the parent because you know exactly what you need to be. But yeah, so when I worked with children with autism, I mean, I felt like they taught me a lot of stuff. I would have children again gaze off in the distance, and I had one in particular that would just start laughing and I could feel some extra energy in the room. And I go, okay, whoever you're talking to, tell them right now you're working. We'll come back and we'll play with that other person. But anyway, he was just laughing. And then a lot of times, whenever the kids I worked with, I always say my children, but because it felt like it. But when they would have meltdowns, there's no words that can express it to help them and I would telepathically tell them, "It's okay. You're gonna be okay. We're gonna work this out. Let's go and play." And I would get my loving energy and I would move it towards them and then envelope them, like in a hug. And you could see them calming down. So, yes, I feel like a lot of children that are under the spectrum are so spiritual if we just listen to what they have to say and look at their behavior. They're teaching us certain things. And many of them are star children. They're not, they feel like they're not meant to be here, which, their home is up in the stars, as we all know. But they are here to help us on earth with our energy and be the conduit for other things that are coming in. But yes, so they can definitely see the sensory, the grids on earth, the sacred geometry. The noises are so loud because they're also hearing frequency as well. So if somebody comes in with a higher frequency or they're in a big room with a lot of people, they're feeling that energy and hearing the energy. And that's when they're feeling it and they just don't know how to shut it out. And it is difficult to teach them how to do that. But you just adapt, you find the tools to adapt like the headset and just give them and that's when a lot of times when you see them stimming or rocking back and forth, they're trying to self-regulate. And a lot of people say, well, they need to stop, but sometimes they need that. And I would have older children who were higher functioning, and they would walk back and forth because they were trying to self-regulate. and say I would set a timer and I said, "Okay, let's, let you do that for 10 minutes and let's go ahead and then get back to work." And they were, able to do that.
Mm, that's beautiful, and I think what came to mind, what a gift for the parents. That's my perspective with children, and one day, hopefully my children as well, is that what they're teaching me.
Right.
Not so much like I'm here as a guide, but I know that they're here to teach us and chose me and my family for a reason. And I have flashbacks to a previous dog I had who was such a sensitive soul. And she taught me so much on how to manage my energy, just what you were saying. And I'm thinking, yeah, I could see that because you know, whenever I was stressed or my anxiety would come up, you could tell immediately her energy would shift and she wouldn't listen. But as soon as I could ground my energy,
Mhm.
you'd be a completely different dog. And that was such a gift. It
Wow.
was very stressful at first, to be able to train her. But then once I started understanding that, ironically, I named her Shanti, which means peace in Sanskrit. And
Oh.
that was the journey to peace for me.
Oh. Oh my gosh. See, dogs are like angels. They
Yeah.
really are. I mean, they take on a lot of stuff. I actually talked to somebody just recently that said that she had a husband that died
Mm,
and she had a dog. And she said it was so strange because that dog died soon after. And she said, what I felt like is this dog took away my pain and really took all of my took a lot of stuff that I needed to heal with her with her whenever she died. And I thought, what a gift that is.
I know.
Just an
Oh,
angel at heart. Yes.
ugh, ugh, yeah, it gets me. It's
Yeah.
just my heart feels so open. But back to humans and
Yes.
children. I think a lot of I listen to Abraham Hicks talk about, you know, these children come in and these sensitive souls, and sometimes they leave a lot sooner,
Mhm.
physical form, croak, as Abraham says so lovingly, before we think they should. And so what have you seen that, these beautiful sensitive souls, these children coming in for maybe shorter amounts of time than what we expect because they fulfill whatever that soul contract was this lifetime. Is that kind of part of this as well?
I think it is, yes, and I think yes. So that's when a soul also agrees to be a miscarriage. That's the
Yes.
same thing that you have to think about. So they're there just to be a part of somebody's story, and they're there to help the story be told, so that the person or their family and their lives can learn these lessons. Because their death, people can learn so much from a child's death, and it is a very difficult thing to go through. I mean, again, I don't want to take that away from anybody, but you learn so much whenever a loved one passes on, and I think it just opens your heart more, and they leave behind a legacy, however old they are. But yeah, a lot of star children are like that. They're here for just a short amount of time, just help. And it's very difficult to know why they're here because, yes, it is in the contract, but it's to definitely change the energy and to help people that are around them know that there is something bigger than themselves. Because
Well,
sometimes, souls here on earth, they don't hear that, until something tragic or something beautiful. Because I mean, when you pass on, it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's just energy going into a different form and going to source, if you think about it, or if this being a soul going somewhere else to make another story.
mm, mm. Yeah, and sometimes, I joke with myself. Sometimes I'm like, okay, we don't need more trauma or triggers to tell me I understand, I see, thank you, I get, I
Yes.
don't
Oh,
need
absolutely,
I got you gotta
absolutely.
joke with it, but you're right, it does sometimes take a little bit from your human perspective, getting shook up at whatever that may be
Right.
to really get you to see a different perspective, the bigger perspective, and also to appreciate. For me, the aspect of
Mm.
loss and sadness and even anxiety and worry, it makes me appreciate love and being present and the people who are with me and, not being able to go after my dreams and now having a career that I get to do that all day. Like, it makes you
Right.
appreciate that contrast for me so much more than if it was just snap my fingers and all of this is here.
Yeah, and what's very interesting, which I love, I feel like I need to share is whenever a parent loses a child, they find other people that have gone through the same experience. And so it really brings people together and almost like a mission together. And I know that right now there's a lot of depressed children out there that are finding other ways like drugs to help them through this, and they're dying from overdoses, and parents are coming together to say, what can we change? There's something going on that we need to change the frequency. We need to change and help these children where that are being ignored. There's something that needs to shift and something that needs to change.
Mm, beautiful. And I think I'm keep hearing, you know, connecting to your child's soul or spirit, whether they're already born or maybe preconception coming in or after even they departed. How does that play a role into all of this as a parent?
Oh, as a parent
Mhm.
to meet your child before they're born. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, that's what's kinda coming through is,
oh, okay.
connection to your that soul that's coming through even before they're here.
It's so interesting that you say that. That's why I wanted to verify what you were asking,
Yeah.
because that actually happened to me. So, and you can actually connect in with a child as you're carrying them with
Mm,
their soul. But yeah, so I woke up one night and I saw an apparition, and and it was a little girl like in overalls, and she was I want to say not a farmer, but she had like a cap on or something. And I reached out to her and I knew that was the child I was carrying. And I started questioning myself, is that really the child I'm carrying? Well, now she has chickens. She's like made her own little farm. So yes, that was the child that I was carrying. And so yeah, so it's beautiful. And of course with women, they can feel it where the husbands or the father cannot feel it because physically they're not carrying the child, but they can actually tap into that energy. And I always tell the dads, put your hand on top of the belly, the mother, and just really feel into it. Close your eyes and center, and you'll be able to feel your baby's energy.
mm,
So yeah, so we can definitely tap in. And then for a lost child that is gone on the other side, they never leave you. There's always an essence that they leave behind. Whenever I did mediumship, I had so many parents that asked me, just ask my child if they are okay. And I said, "They are better than okay." They are wonderful. They're just surrounding you. And that's why a lot of times whenever, after a couple loses a child and they get pregnant again, and they have this other child, and the child can see their brother and sister who has passed away, that's why, is because they're always surrounding the family. They may, and and they go, "Well, how can they be here and up in the divine at the same time?" I said, "Anything is possible. They can be at 5 or 6 different places at once." So they are there with you. So you can always talk to your child if you that has deceased. And if you cannot feel them, because I think emotions get involved, because when you're trying to feel your child, you go, I can't feel it. Just relax, because just know that they're there. Pray to them, talk to them, and then relax. And they will show you a sign. Ask them to leave you a sign. And it may take a couple of days. Like can you show me a butterfly while I'm in the car that goes across the windshield? That you can be that specific and give it some time, and that will actually occur.
mm. It's so beautiful. I love that. I love those little kisses from the universe or from
Mhm,
God, as I like to call them.
mhm.
So, really, preconception before these kids even come in, how can we prepare ourselves energetically to bring in these souls? Like, because I'm thinking as a future mother, how do we ground our own energies to say, "It's safe, you're welcome," or is it just predetermined, like, you know what I mean? Like, do we really need to dive deeper into this work to really prepare ourselves vibrationally to be this channel for these, I don't wanna say advanced souls, but sensitive souls
Yes.
coming through?
Yes. I love the question. The number one thing is take care of yourself.
Hmm.
Because when you have the higher frequency, when you find the joy in life and you do a lot of spiritual things, yes, you will be prepared for this child. But I don't know. I don't know if you
Yeah.
can prepare because a lot of these children have a lot of energy. So just know, just accept whatever comes and let go of trying to control everything. I think is the bigger picture. Because when you try to control, you're not really going to enjoy the child and be with that child. You know, don't have technology in the environment at all times. Get out and be in nature with a child and do spiritual things. You can still be religious if you want to, but also bring in that spirituality, the nature that's around, and bring in that joy.
Hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Now I'm thinking about, okay, parenting, but school systems,
Yes.
teachers, counselors, coaches. You know, I'm I had a pretty good experience in public school, but
Oh, good.
what we grew up with, I don't think is as supportive as it could be for these future generations. And have things shifted, or do we need to kind of be these advocates even more so now?
You need to be an advocate because there are so many choices now than what I had in the 70s and the 80s and even 90s. There are private schools are opening up and a lot of them look really naturalistic. I mean, they're doing things, they're planting gardens, they're doing, holistic things. And then but if you do not have that option in your area and your child does have to go to a public school, it is okay because your child is learning about society, learning about different people, learning about how people are, spiritually, religious, what they think. So, you can over um saturate your child with spirituality in an environment, and then when they go out into the real world, they may get fearful. So this really allows them to understand what earthly beings are all about. That yes, they do have to ground because it's good to be spiritual, but you also are in a human body having you need to have a human experience. I know we're spiritual beings, having but you need to also be human and to understand how to help people and relate to people, you need to be around them and know that they all are going on a different journey, their own different pathway than you are. But you can be the love and you can be the light for them.
Mm, beautiful, 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 beautiful. So we got a beautiful picture of how to support these kids. How do you support them? You kind of mentioned, different sessions with people, the work that you do supporting the families, parents, children. How does that look like if somebody's listening wanting to learn more?
Right. So whenever I mainly work with the parents,
Okay.
I know that there's a show on online where they go into the home and they work with the child and teach it. But I work mainly with the parents because, especially when they're younger, because the parent is there all the time with the child and they can do more. Because as soon as I leave, how are they going to do it unless they understand, what to do? And if they're already spiritually there, then there's not much for me to do just to help guide them. So, but as the child is in middle school or high school, is whenever I do a Zoom call with a child. And many times it's over just a little bit anxiety, and the parent is still there on Zoom. But middle schoolers, they don't want to say much.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay. But sometimes it takes a parent saying, no, you're not, tell her the truth. But with younger children, again, the number one thing that they always say, "Well, what can I do to help my child to support them?" And I always tell them, listen to them. Do not be afraid of anything that's going on. Just be their guidance. Just be there for them and accept who they are. And, sometimes you're going to, want to pull your hair out because they are being very emotional, but you can also teach them breathing techniques. You can teach them yoga. You can teach them how to meditate. Of course, none of this looks like an adult. You don't want them to meditate for 30 minutes when they're 3 years old. So I always tell them if they're three, just have them, sit there for 3 minutes. And you don't have to make a just in silence. They can spray their room of energy, and make them feel better and feel like a cleansing, like they're in control. And I just give them little techniques to use um, for the children so that they can feel like they're empowered.
Beautiful. And you did mention, for the parents, kind of the through line, especially what you said with, conceiving, is let go of that control and the worry,
Yes.
right? That
Yes.
seems to be the lesson here for most of the work.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Now, I do tell them if it's, whenever you do have spirit coming in and the parents are very, very religious and they don't want anything to do with it, then that is in their right. So I say, okay, then you can pray like I did when I was younger, say, we're not ready for this. Because if your child is intuitive and wants to use it later, they will. Spirit will find them. They're not going to disappear. But yeah, so conceptually, if you worry, sometimes that will stop your body because of that anxiety. And also, if you're carrying a child and you have anxiety, the child's going to feel your anxiety. So it kind of goes twofold. So again, make sure you take care of yourself and know that people, the human body is meant to have children and not to worry.
Mm,
Because I know a lot of people will go, well, what if it's a special needs child? Well, what if it is? I mean, because maybe you were meant to have a special needs child. What if, and this child can bring you so much joy or so much joy than what you've ever had. So don't be fearful of what God, the divine, the collective brings you because you are being chosen for this child.
mm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I just feel nice warm fuzzies around my heart. So,
Oh.
thank you, Michelle, so much for coming on and sharing. Was there anything else on your heart today that you wanted to share about anything that may have
Um,
not covered?
yes, yes, yes. So whenever, even I mean, as an adult, even as a child, when research has shown when children know there's something greater than themselves. And this can be angels, this can be the divine, because we are all the divine, as you know, but you've got to realize there is something greater happening here. Whenever you get depressed, you get sad, you can always, sit in silence, say a prayer, set an affirmation, whatever you feel you need, and really feel into how you need to help yourself. Because you know, you are your universe, you are your story. Um, don't let anyone get you off your spiritual pathway because you know what you need. But if you know there's something greater than yourself, you are less than finding drugs. You will be less and looking at lower energies. You need to find the light inside yourself and know that you're going to be okay because there's a greater thing, bigger than yourself. And we're all in that collectiveness together and we can all do it together.
Mm.
I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. It totally does. And that we are never alone, right?
No.
We are part of something. I think of the Rumi quote, you're not just one drop in the ocean, you're the entire ocean in one drop.
Yes.
Mm,
And I did hear some fact I feel like I need to and it was also a quote that if when people talk to people, mediums, whenever they talk to people who crossed over and they committed suicide, the one thing that they know once they cross over is if I had waited 1 hour, if I had waited 1 day, then things would have worked out. I would have known what to do to change things because things always change for the better. And so that was a message that a lot of mediums received. So I just want to put that out there.
Mm, yes, that's probably one of the top mantras I go back to is everything is always working out for me because it always has.
Yes.
It might not
Right.
seem like it right now, but here.
Yes.
I'm still continuing growing and it always will change. That's a one
Yes.
constant for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on. It was such a lovely time diving into spirit and babies and children and these star beings that are
Oh,
among
yeah.
us now.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yes, they are.
Ah.
And, and when they start coloring their hair, just let them. The purple and the pink.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much again. It was such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks.